So recently I was watching an interview between Zane Lowe and the band Geese, and the lead singer was making a point about politics and art. He was making a point about political messages and putting those political messages into songs. And to kind of give the gist of his take, he was saying that political messages or any sort of opinion shouldn't be put in art too directly. I don't want to bastardize his point here, but essentially he was kind of saying, not that like these things have no place in art, but if it turns into writing a manifesto in a song, he says it's not going to hold up too well to scrutiny, right? This isn't about his take. I'm not going to this isn't a response video at all. I understand his point, and I personally disagree with I guess more so the framing of the point than anything, right? If you watch this show for any amount of time, you know I'm not really into statements about art that are broad brushed, right? It's more I guess a matter of tastes and how we discuss these things than anything else. I think that his point makes a lot of sense, and I think there's a lot of cases in which you can say that his point is correct, and that, you know, when you make your writing too literal or your painting too literal, that it can not hold up too well over time, or even just to scrutiny, or even with different audiences, right? But I think there's also a lot of exceptions to this point, right? Masters of War by Bob Dylan, still an amazing song, no matter what you think, right? A lot of cases like this definitely exist throughout the 60s especially. That's just my opinion, and I'm not saying this as a way to disagree, more so to illustrate the why I disagree with making statements about art, right? I much prefer discussions about art over statements. I think that they'll hold up well to scrutiny, and I guess that's why. I guess I could even say that slight disagreement that I have here with Mr. Goose himself is sort of a microcosm of what I want to talk about with this discussion as a whole, right? Because as much as I don't agree with what he's saying on a base statement because I don't like statements about art, I really agree with what he's saying from the point of abstraction and the role in which abstraction can have in the arts and making something way better than if it wasn't there, right? I think that oftentimes what we fall into, and this is something that I especially see nowadays, right? Because there's this thing that happens, and I'm going to talk about politics, I suppose, a little bit here, because not just because his take originates from that in this interview snippet I was seeing, but also because I do think that this is sort of an internet phenomenon I've been seeing, where like nowadays people want things to be very literal. They want people to agree with them 100%, and it's like this weird thing where people are parasocial with artists as well as their creations, right? Whereas you could go like, Dali, great painter, don't care about anything else he says, don't agree with anything else he says. Nowadays, I think, maybe because of how much information is out there, because artists are making public statements all the time about what they believe is going on in the world, maybe because we're parasocial with everybody nowadays to levels we've never been before. You know, I don't really know why it is, but there's sort of this expectation that like, this person will agree with me because I like their art, right? I'm not even trying to do a separate the art from the artist thing here. I think I'm more so just trying to say like, why are we listening to what artists have to say too much? Why are we caring what artists have to say? You know, if you like somebody's perspective, you think they have interesting things to say, listen to them, by all means. If you don't, you don't. You can still like you can still just like watch their movie. Like, I don't care. You know, I think sometimes we extrapolate too much from this, right? And I think because of that, there's this effect that it has on the arts individually, where some artists now, especially people who are like, maybe, I don't know if I want to say newer, right? Because what does it even mean to be newer when it comes to the arts? But kind of, I guess, less experience, you could say, as a broad brush statement here. Especially, I mean, with social media and all that, they feel they have to speak. They feel not speak on social media, speak within the art, you know? It's not enough you have to have a clear defined ideology. You have to have a clear defined point to make, right? And that's actually where I want to make a clear distinction here as we get into this discussion, as we talk about this, that I want to make a separation from the original take that kind of made me think about this, from Mr. Goose's take himself, right, about politics and art, because it's not about politics and art. It's not about that at all, actually. If anything, I think you can find more exceptions with politics and art than a lot of these other things. It's about statements in art in general. And I think we've also, this isn't, I'm going to talk about movies, because I think this is a place where it's happened. Things need to be spelled out for people now more than ever, or at least, I don't know if I can say that. I feel like artists feel, studios maybe, feel that things need to be spelled out for people more than ever. As people give less time to analyzing things, as they consume things more passively, right? I think it's more normal now to have something that's easier, to have something that spells out its message for you, right? And I don't like this. One, because I think it eliminates a lot of discussion, and I think discussion is much of the fun that comes from art, right? Two, because one, I mean, honestly, I guess ultimately I think it makes for worse art. I think that if we wanted to, for an example, this is going to get kind of meta. Sorry if I lose some of you with this. This discussion I'm having about messages in art. It'd be a really terrible painting if I tried to paint this literally. That's why I'm doing a discussion about it. That's why I'm just talking, right? Let's say that I tried to write a song about this. If I were to aptly and accurately convey these ideas that I'm saying to you in a song right now, unless you have like the best writer on earth doing it, it's gonna be a bad song. It's just not gonna work. Now, if you allow yourself to abstract this, and let's say what you do is instead of trying to write a song that's just directly about, messages and art and conveying them directly versus skewing them and abstracting them to create a better product. Let's say if instead of trying to write it directly, you write it abstractly, right? You write about how oftentimes, maybe even if you'll take it from a meta perspective in a different direction, right? About how, as an artist, you feel that people only listen to you when you're singing what you have to say, and how people don't take you seriously otherwise, right? Maybe you make up a whole story about a character who's going through something like that, right? Maybe it's about a court jester, like that one Polish guy who was like warning the king. He was like the king. There's this Polish jester. There's a famous painting of him where he's like sitting like that. One of my favorite paintings, and famous story about how he was doing jester stuff. I don't really know what a jester does. I don't really get what their act is. But he was doing jester stuff for the king, trying to warn the king, like, hey, maybe, was it Polish or no? The painting is in Poland, in a museum in Poland. I believe it was a Spanish jester, though, that the story's about. I don't know, Stanchik, I believe it's pronounced. That sounds Eastern European. I don't know. Let's say this jester was somewhere, right? He was warning the king, like, hey, your country's about to fall apart. He was doing his jester act, and the king just kept laughing because it was a jester thing. He was like, this is a jester act. He's not serious. And then the kingdom fell, and everything went bad. And the jester was like, I knew it, right? That could be, if you were to take that story, abstract it, and write a song about Stanchik, that could be an amazing story about how messages, when they're muddled, become unlistenable, but everybody wants to hear them, and yada yada yada. You can convey that idea. However, it's not going to be super clearly defined, right? Like, that's going to make for a much better song. It's going to make for a much more interesting story. Honestly, that 1 minute snippet of discussion we just had might have been more interesting than the whole video that we're going to discuss from here on out, and before that too. Conveys the point a lot worse, though. And that's the thing. Sometimes you got to sacrifice making a statement to make art out of that statement, right? And two things happen here, right? Because I don't want to just say that, like, on the one hand, what happens here is it becomes much better to consume, just from like a very literal level. It becomes much nicer to consume. More people will be inclined to consume it. The message will be lost a little bit, though, right? Like, let's say if you were trying to convey a very direct idea about, like, we need to listen to artists on exactly what they have to say, and we need to stop trying to trying to just consume their art as if it's separated from these things, right? A lot of people are going to come away from it not having gathered that message. And that's the worst part of this. That's kind of the downside of abstraction. But the positive that comes along with that, I think, is insurmountable. I think what happens is there's a lot more to be gained. When you show somebody an abstract web, right, they're more likely to kind of get their own, it's going to be kind of cast a mirror on them, right? This discussion we're having right now in this video about art and how messages in art should be abstracted, or they're better abstracted sometimes. Maybe you think they're worse abstracted. This whole discussion, this is a specified discussion. A lot of people would kind of walk by this. Let's say we were 2 people in a coffee shop having this discussion instead. A lot of people would walk by that table like, I don't know what they're talking about, I don't care, right? When you allow something to be abstract, right? Let's say we discuss Stanchik. We do something about him, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Polish or Poland, maybe it's Hungarian, I don't know. But let's say we're talking about that story. It's a little more abstract, a little more interesting even. There's more to be, there's different angles you can kind of take things. If we're doing that, somebody walking by our conversation at that coffee joint, at that cafe, some might stop, some might be like, hey, what are you talking about? Maybe somebody will walk by and kind of be like, huh, that's how I feel in my life when I'm trying to talk to people, but they don't really listen to me, or something like that, right? What you're gonna have here is perhaps doing it this way, that I'm doing it right now. Basically, I'm not trying to make art out of this. I'm making a podcast, which I guess, I don't know, if you think podcasts are art, cool, that's great. I'm gonna kind of separate this from painting and writing and the stuff we usually discuss here, though, for the sake of this argument, at least. So, when you do something like this, you have that conversation in the coffee shop, let's say, about directly messaging in art, and what it should look like, yada, 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 Maybe out of the 100 people that day, one will walk by who is like, wow, this is exactly what I've been looking for. I'm a painter. I've been trying to figure out what's missing. This is it, you're a genius. They'll get it exactly. I think if you abstract it, if you have a conversation that is sung rather than spoken, you'll have a lot less people walking by, or you'll have rather a lot more people walking by who are interfacing with what your discussion is. You'll have a lot more people walking by going, I feel something about this. And they'll gain something, right? Now maybe, like we're saying, they might gain something completely irrelevant. They might be listening to your story about this Polish or vaguely Eastern European jester and saying like, oh man, I feel like this is about me and my boyfriend. Maybe they'll say something about like, I feel like this was like my relationship with my dad. I feel like this was about my relationship with, I feel like this is how my cat sees me. They'll, maybe they'll say some bullshit even, right? They'll gain something though, right? Because it's abstracted, it's vague. And the interesting thing is like, what they're gaining from it, well, like we said, if they're like, oh my God, this is how my cat views me, they're gonna be, maybe they're saying some bullshit from your point of view, maybe from where you're sitting, you're like, this is a simpleton. Who knows, and you could very well be right in saying that. Listen, I'm not gonna say that you're wrong if you have a conversation with a random person in the cafe who says that their cat feels unheard by them. However, everybody gains something there, right? Maybe you even gained some new perspectives on your conversation that you weren't thinking about before. And I think that is the benefit of it, right? And I think that's why I do like this as a discussion rather than a statement. Because when we discuss this, I think a lot of people will watch this, or, kind of a lot of people would hear this point rather, and come away from it going, yeah, I think the answer here is that I should speak rather than abstracting my points, because I don't want to be misunderstood. I want people to hear me and know exactly what I'm saying, and that's fine. But I think there's a lot of people who are going to be like, no, I think it's better if 100 people walk by and gain something, even if it's not exactly what I was looking for, because that's how learning works. That's how dialogue works, right? I have no idea what the answer is. I honestly think that, like, I know what my answer is. I think that's a case-by-case basis, right? Like, when I do these, I speak these for a reason. If I want to write poetry about these topics, I wouldn't deliver that like this, There's a reason why I am so into different mediums, because some things I think do need to be, I don't think I could ever make a painting that would convey the ideas I'm talking about here. Maybe I could write a story that would abstract them, but I'm not very interested in doing that. I'm interested in writing stories that are abstracting other things. But I think knowing what to do when is important, right? In the same way that, like, when you're with your friends, you know when to make a joke, when to be serious, how to act. I think that, honestly, not even with your friends, just when you're in a room of people, the difference between, like, oh, this is a good time to crack a joke versus, like, oh, no, this is not a good time to crack a joke, or maybe, this is a good time to, if you're somebody who knows when it's a good time to rip out your British accent, just like you know how to use those things in social situations, I think there's also an equal amount of virtue to knowing when to break out those same mechanisms in art, of singing rather than speaking. That's my take. This is the painting. Kind of going in with this style again that's like, a little, I don't know, it feels almost cosmic. It feels a little surrealist. It feels graphic designy with like some of these straight lines and these spheres. I really like it. I really do think this is interesting. Does it, well, kind of topical to this discussion is, does it mean anything? I don't exactly know. I'm inclined to say no, it doesn't, but it feels like something, and I like that. I like that quite a bit. Maybe that's the ultimate abstraction, to say a random thing, to bookmark this episode. Go check this out on the TikTok and the Instagram, and until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This has been Paint Deck episode 330. Who let us get that far? And until next time, I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.